Okay. Okay. So the class is being recorded. Good afternoon, everyone. This is me, Dr. Sami Abdel Jalil, and this is AA100A. Today, inshallah, we are finishing Kilobatra off. We've been doing Kilobatra for the past 2 weeks, and it's at that time that we finished it. I'm hopeful that you have done some reading, some research perhaps. I'm hopeful that we have perhaps managed to excite you about Kilubatra, and you are perhaps doing research on aspects of her character, trying to perhaps prove that she is not what the Romans are saying about her. Have you done any of that? I'm asking. Were you motivated enough to go out of your way and try to do some research about Cleopatra and see what she has and what she does not have? Yeah, somebody is raising her hand. Go ahead. Hello? So come to the mic, whoever is raising his or her hand. Can you hear me at all?
Yes, Dr. Sami.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Dr. Sami, I heard that there was a WhatsApp group. Can someone add me there?
We will add you at the end of the class, inshallah, ya Bara, al-Bara.
Should I put my number here? There is no chat. I guess the chat is closed.
Yeah, you can always send, I think we're friends. I know you from previous semesters and previous courses.
Yes, Doctor.
You have
Thank
my
you so
number.
much.
You can always WhatsApp me, and I'll kind of put you on the
Okay.
group, inshallah.
Okay, thank you. Allah يعطيك العافية. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, doctor. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. What's your name?
Widad.
Widad. Go ahead, you Widad.
Okay, so I've previously read books for her. I have not right now, but right now I am playing a video game that's based on her.
That's
So
it.
playing a video game like as the character helped me interact with who she was in the time way more than any book I've read.
Yeah, that's interesting
I think
too.
that's useful.
I wonder how she is presented in the video game. I mean, or is it open? Is it open to you? You manipulate the threads.
Well, you're kind of a character that's serving her and trying to help her take back the city from her brother and remove him.
So it depends on you. It depends on how skillful you are in doing just that, right?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Don't worry.
So we're counting on you to restore some of the dignity that she lost on account of the descriptions and the accounts that we had by the Roman sources, which, as we said, were very biased and very prejudiced, right? Okay, can we have somebody else? Somebody is raising her hand, or his hand for that matter. Come to the mic, identify yourself, and
Hello?
Yeah.
My name is Bashair.
Bashair, go ahead.
I saw a program about Kilobattra before maybe 3 months.
Nice.
And I found the same information that we got it from the book.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so it's almost the same information that you got from the book. You had this featured in perhaps a documentary or something. Okay. Anybody else before we proceed? Yeah, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Good afternoon, my teacher.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ahmed Al-Amri.
Okay.
I was trying to find some information through internet about Cleopatra. I found something strange. There are some people, researchers, especially in the Western culture. Some of them said Cleopatra was not an Egyptian woman. It was not an Egyptian. This reminds me of some of them who said the pyramids were built by another people, not Egyptian. I don't know what they have with the Egyptian history with the Egyptian and culture. Maybe they invade Egypt and Egyptians because of their rich history, rich characters, rich buildings, or something like that.
Yeah, it happens because of the you normally have wars. I mean, people engage in wars, and of course, if you are my enemy, I wouldn't say very nice stuff about you and about your history. And this is actually what used to happen. I remember that we said that Roman sources were all over the place, and it has always been known that the Romans were against the Egyptians. It's only natural that with their technology, when it comes to book technology and recording and everything, they were dominating the airwaves, if you like. So people were getting information from them. So if they come and say that she is not purely Egyptian, people would believe them because they were, at one point, they were the only source of information and knowledge about Egypt and about Cleopatra and everybody else. And also the idea that the fact that she was not originally Egyptian. You know, perhaps at the time it would mean it would discredit her, but perhaps nowadays it's different. I mean, you go to the United States and perhaps you live there for 5 or 6 years, and the next thing you know is that you can get elected and become a congressman, for example. So the idea of whether you're purely Egyptian or purely Roman or purely Saudi does not really exist in the world of late. Perhaps people in ancient times would, kind of give these things importance and everything, but we're not doing that anymore. What is strange about the Roman sources was the fact that they were trying their hardest to distance Kilubatra from her Greek origins. It is a fact that she was of Greek origin. She was the last of the Ptolemies, and the Ptolemies were people who took over from Alexander the Great, and Alexander the Great was from Macedonia, and Macedonia happens to be a place in Europe near Greek, and they have the same culture. She was actually of Greek origin, but you're talking about Cleopatra and her family, and they have been living in Egypt for hundreds of years. If you live in a place for hundreds of years, nobody can come over and say, listen, you're not Saudi, you're not Egyptian, you're not, I don't know what. So she was Greek originally, but she was also Egyptian as it can get. Again, I'm focusing on the idea that the Romans were trying to say that she was not Greek. Obviously, because of the fact that if they say that she is Greek, and if they confirm her Greekness, that would be a problem, because the Greeks were even higher in culture than the Romans. And the Romans were always saying that we are actually inheriting our culture from the Greeks. So Roman sources were trying to stress her Egyptianness at the expense of her Greekness. We'll talk about this point today, actually, and this is going to feature on our agenda tonight, inshallah. Okay, so we'll stop with the questions and those beautiful insights that you guys are bringing to the conversation. We'll try to finish the part that we still have left, and then we can engage in discussions about the whole thing, assessing and reassessing the character of Kilubatra and see what whether we're going to confirm the impressions that we had about her from Roman sources, or whether we're going to refute and kind of challenge those impressions and those perceptions. Okay, let me share the slides because somehow they're not shared anymore. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Okay, good. Okay. Remember, as a wrap-up, I would like you to kind of tell me how it went over the past 2 weeks. Over the past 2 weeks, it was about our modern impressions as given and as shaped and created by the media. And then we went all the way to ancient times. Where did we go? Did we go to Egypt yet? Not yet, right? When we went all the way to the past, it was ancient Rome, right? It was ancient sources, right? What were the sources, or what are the sources? Remember them? Remember how many sources we had? Yes. Yeah.
Three different sources.
Okay, come again. I didn't hear that.
Yes,
Three
my
written
name is Mary.
sources.
Yeah, three.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
three.
reference were the poem and the speech of Augustus.
Okay, so we have a speech reconstructed by Cassius Dio, who said that this was originally made by Octavian. And we have a poem by Horace. Please mute your mic. And we have, please mute your mic. This is not acceptable.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. Close your mic.
I don't know. Okay. So again, like I said, we had those three sources. One of them was the speech by Octavian. And the second source was a poem by the Roman poet Horace. And the third one was the biography on Antony by Plutarch, right? Remember them? And they seem to agree on denigrating the character of Kilobattra. Denigrating means attacking and finding faults and discrediting somebody. So they were all discrediting Kilobattra. They were denying her, everything good and decent, right? Perhaps the only thing that Horace and also Plutarch, the only positive thing that they mentioned about her was the fact that she died a noble kind of death when she refused to give herself up to the Romans so that they can take her to Rome and they humiliate her in parades and everything. Other than that, she was presented in the worst of lights. She was presented as, a sexual predator. She was presented as somebody who is disrupting peaceful households, as an enchantress, somebody who practices magic and witchcraft on people. Remember these things better? Do you still remember specific things? I mean, if for example, I tell you about Octavian and what he said, do you still remember what he said about her in his speech?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. What's your name?
My name is Zakia.
And in his speech, he talks, he first of all, he describes the Egyptians as well as, he never mentions Cleopatra's name. And he also describes the Egyptians as backward, and he criticizes their religion and how the Egyptians worship beasts and reptiles. And and in his speech he glorifies the Roman culture. And he also talks about how Antony was a very capable man, but after being seduced by Cleopatra, he was rendered useless, and how he did not wish to go into war against Antony, but he was left with no choice. And he also criticizes, and he also feels sorry about the fact that he has to imagine men serving as bodyguards for Cleopatra, who is a queen. And since women were not, it's kind of misogynistic, because women were not given any respect in Rome. They were not accounted as much in Roman culture. So he also disrespects Cleopatra, even though she is a queen, in his own speech.
Yeah, that's
That is all.
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Zakiya, for this thorough, recap of what the speech is all about, right? I like to also stress the fact that, like Zakiya did, the idea that according to them, women meant very little. That's why, the idea that at one point she may become their queen was very kind of intimidating for them. The fact that she's a woman, the fact that she is also a queen. They were misogynist, like Zakiya said. Misogynist means that they were women haters. For them, women meant very little. So to have a woman, to have a queen, and obviously when you mention the word queen, for them it is also as scary, because being a queen means that this would remind them of those civil wars that they had before the coming of Octavian. The fact that at one point Julius Caesar was trying to kind of turn Rome from a republic into a kingdom, and he wanted to be an emperor. So the prospect of having a woman doing that, taking over and becoming the queen of the land, was very scary for them. So they have, as you can see, every reason to hate Kilubatra. And there was no objective history writing at the time. Remember when we said that history is normally written from the perspective of the victor or the winning side, and the winning side wouldn't say or wouldn't give credit to the losing side. This is human nature, and this is actually what happens. If we look at the speech, you're going to find that we don't have much talk about Antony. And the reason is not far to seek. I mean, somehow Octavian is trying to avoid mentioning Antony, because he wants to say that it's not a civil war that we're having. I don't have a problem with Antony. Antony is bad and is effeminate and everything, but obviously the problem is with Kilobatra and her country, not with Antony. He's trying to give the Romans justifications as why he has to bring them in war with the other side. He's trying to say that it is this is what he is trying to indicate, that if I talk about Antony, people are going to take it that we are engaged in a civil war, which we are not. But if I talk about Kirubatra, who happens to be from another country, who happens to be foreign, it means that it's a war that we're having against a foreign power, a foreign power that is trying to perhaps invade us, take over our, imperial possessions and everything. Do you still remember the poem? The second source was a poem, right? By Horace. How much do you still remember about the poem? And the shifts that we have in the poem. How did the poet start, and then how he ended? Do you still remember that about the poem? The fact that we have a change of tone, the fact that we have a change of heart, right? So come to the mic and tell me what you think about the poem, what you still remember about the poem.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, I'm Taima. The poem mentioned that at the beginning that she's a bad queen and she's like a monster and madness. But after that, the writer mentioned her as a great person because of her noble death.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can we have somebody else? Remember the stylistic analysis that we did last time when we spoke about the choice of words and how many times she is mentioned, and every time she's mentioned you have the word mad or crazy, monstrous, right? So remember that. Still remember that towards the end of the poem we have this change of attitude where she is described as perhaps a dove, and Caesar is described as a hope, right? And towards the end of the poem we have this complete change of heart where there is this kind of respect for the kind of death that she had, the fact that she killed herself. And this is typical Roman, if you still remember, because this is what the Romans expect of a Roman soldier. If a Roman soldier is defeated and he has the choice of either surrendering himself or handing himself over to the enemy or killing himself, he decides to kill himself, right? And this is what she actually did, and that's perhaps what earned her the respect of Roman sources. And then so on the one hand, she's a despised. This is actually about the poem, right? On the one hand, she is a despised figure, both a threat to Roman security and the embodiment of a foreign, alien, and contemptible culture. Yet, at the same time, Kilobatra's death serves to redefine her. For in the end, this hated female figure acted with a nobility and resolve that was worthy of any Roman aristocrat. Again, we're stressing the fact that Horace was not an eyewitness. We're stressing the fact that we have to take what Horace and the others are saying with a grain of salt, for the simple reason that these people were not eyewitnesses. I mean, they are talking about events that happened at least 200 years after. And that would cast doubt on their narrative and everything. Again, we have seen that in general, the Roman perspective on Egypt and Cleopatra drew sharp distinctions between the two sides. Rome was seen as manly, austere, disciplined, and principled, and Egypt was seen as effeminate, reckless, indulgent, and debauched. This provided authors such as Dio and Plutarch a context for the bewitchment and ruin of Antony, one in which he was thrown out of his better Roman self and Egyptianized, and he was Egyptianized through the seductive wiles of Kilobattra. So it's not that Antony was bad, or so it's the fact that Antony was the victim of witchcraft, the fact that Kilobattra, as a representative of a culture that believes in magic and witchcraft, she could kind of cast a spell, a magic spell on Antony. And what would be the end result? He would be thrown out of his better Roman self and becomes Egyptianized with all the bad associations of being Egyptianized according to the Romans. If you go to Plutarch, we're going to find that in his version, Antony's involvement with Cleopatra becomes a sort of parable of how the great can be destroyed by their moral flaws. So Plutarch acknowledges the fact that Antony has moral flaws, and one of them was this indulgence and this engagement with Kilobattra. He in Plutarch, which is typical of Plutarch, Antony is presented as an example, and an example actually not to follow, right? Again, it's all about cultural stereotyping and vilification. The fact that Kilobattra was vilified. Vilified means that she was discredited. She was portrayed in a very negative way. Again, why did Octavian would do that? This was simply to discredit. Of course, he has every reason to discredit her as a powerful enemy, and also because he was trying to promote the fact that the conflict is not with a Roman. It is with the conflict is against a foreign and threatening power. So the war is waged against Cleopatra and Egypt, and not against Antony. So as you can see, Cleopatra is raised to the level of a monstrous threat to the state. And of course, there is little about Antony in order to avoid the appearance of a civil war.
Doctor?
Yes.
Why they attack Cleopatra when she had a relationship with Antony, but they didn't attack her when she had a relationship with Julius Caesar?
Well, because Julius Caesar was not defeated. Antony was defeated. Julius Caesar was so powerful, and he wasn't defeated. Perhaps that was, and Octavian was not there. And the relationship between Kilobattra and Julius Caesar was a relationship of, you know, like I said, Julius Caesar was so powerful and Kilobattra was weak. In front of him, she was weak, and she was showing him and perhaps everyone else that she is weak. She is in a weak position so that he can help her out. Remember, when she reached out to Caesar, Julius Caesar, I mean, she was trying to appeal to him so that he can save her from her brothers and sisters. I mean, they were kind of intriguing against her. So Caesar, unlike Antony, was in a powerful position. So they didn't have to kind of discredit her because she was in a weaker position already. And she was acknowledging it. She was, and Egypt was under the dominion of Rome already. So we're moving to, we're going to the south now. We're shifting gears and moving all the way to Egypt. If you still remember the map, we had Rome in the north and to the west, where Egypt is in the south and to the east. Right, so we're moving. This is perhaps the second, or perhaps the third leg, and the last leg on this journey that we had. We started off with modern times, and then we went all the way to Rome and Roman sources, and now we are in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. And this part will be talking about Kilobattra. We'll perhaps engage in a bit of history. We're going to perhaps engage in a bit of politics. And we will see how Kilobattra is presented in Roman, in Egyptian sources, if any. We're going to see how Kilobattra looks at herself and how Kilobattra wants the world to see her. In order to do that, she will be ordering monuments, crafted in her name or under her name, as we're going to see. So who is Kilobattra in the first place? And obviously, through the Roman sources that we have seen, there was no talk about where she came from. It was taken for granted that they are dealing with an Egyptian queen. When we dig deep into history, we're going to get to know that Kilobattra is as much Egyptian as she was Greek. And the fact that she has Greek blood. So in this section, we turn away from the Roman depiction of Kilobattra and look at this historical figure. Obviously, with historical figure, we mean, of course, Kilobattra in her own right. We're going to look at her as the last of the Hellenistic queens of Egypt and also the last of the pharaohs. So as you can see, she is both Hellenistic and pharaoh. So two seemingly or irreconcilable strands in her character. Hellenistic is from Helen, and Helen is, according to Greek mythology, Helen is Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy, if you go back to Greek mythology, you will find a great deal of talk about her. This is the lady that wars started in her name. This was perhaps for 10 years. People had to wage wars against another city. And the reason was that Helen of Troy was kind of kidnapped by Paris, who happens to be, you know, the resident or the inhabitant of another city. They had this war for 10 years. And if people start a war and the war remains for 10 years, it means that we're talking about somebody who is, you know, important. So, to cut a very long story short, Hellenistic is from Helen. So whenever there is reference to Greek tradition, we refer to Greek tradition as either Greek or Hellenistic. So for perhaps our course purposes, we're going to always use the word Hellenistic to mean Greek. So again, she was the last of the Greek queens of Egypt and also the last of the pharaohs. So she has those two streaks to her character. But obviously, if you go back to the Roman sources, you will not find any mentioning of the fact that she was of Hellenistic or Greek origin. Again, for obvious reasons. Again, the Romans considered themselves the legitimate heirs of the Greeks. So if they perhaps mention the fact that she is of Greek origin, people would kind of blame them because they almost have the same blood and the same heritage. So that's why there was this stress on the fact that she is Egyptian to the core. Again, when we read history away from the biases and the prejudice of the Roman sources, we're going to find that she is Greek and she is Hellenistic. So three things we have here. We have the fact that she is Hellenistic, the fact that she is queen, and the fact that she was the last of the pharaohs. So she and her family inherited the throne from the pharaohs, and she became a pharaoh herself. So she needs to do what? She needs to reconcile the traditions of both the Greeks and also the pharaohs. And this is actually what is going to give her some legitimacy. She would at one point even lean towards being more of a pharaoh than a Greek for obvious reasons. The fact that she was trying to get the legitimacy that she needs in order to be a legitimate. Legitimate means legal and lawful queen. In order to get this legitimacy, she has to kind of adhere to pharaonic practices and traditions, as you're going to see in a minute. So who is Kilubatra? We have had enough talk about Kilubatra from Roman sources, but obviously we wouldn't take what they say for granted, because this is one of the lessons that we're getting. If you still remember, we said that you have to question what people are saying about other people. You have to challenge whatever ideas you get. You don't just take things for granted. You don't just accept things at their face value. No. If somebody comes over and perhaps tells you that one of your best friends is saying this and that behind your back, you wouldn't go right away and blame her for whatever he or she, her or him for that matter. You will have to double check and see whether she said what other people are saying she said or not, right? So this is ABC relationships. You need to double check. You need to keep your guard up against misconceptions, about ideas, against everything. Questioning things is an indication that you have a thinking mind. You don't just follow the herd, like they say. So it should be noted that in the study of Kilubatra, there is typically an emphasis on the Romans' point of view. And of course, by now, when I say the Roman point of view, you know what it is all about: bias, prejudice, hatred, misogyny, and all these kinds of things. This is due not only to the primacy of the Roman Empire in the Western tradition, but also to the relative lack of any Egyptian evidence with which to counter this viewpoint. So again, it is true that the Romans were all over the place. They were very powerful, and their empire was big and everything, and they were dominating the airwaves, if you like. But it is also because of the lack of Egyptian evidence, the fact that we don't have Egyptian or reliable and considerable Egyptian evidence. Again, because perhaps the way Egyptians thought of recording their history would be different from the Roman way of recording history, as we're going to see in a minute. So again, the whole atmosphere was kind of ready for the Romans and their sources, and that's why they dominated. The Egyptians had a different way of history or recording history. So Kilubatra entered the history of the West largely through her incorporation into the written records of Roman authors. Again, we know of Kilubatra because of what the Romans wrote about her. Again, there were no narrative histories or biographies of Kilubatra written by ancient Egyptians. So if in the absence of Egyptian sources, of course, Roman sources will win and will dominate the airwaves. Again, so what are we doing? I mean, obviously this part is about who Kilubatra is, and we're saying that we're going to have an outline given by the Egyptians. Actually, it's not given by the Egyptians. It is given by sources other than the Romans, and even the Roman sources themselves. We had those bits and pieces. We put them together and came up with a profile. Egyptian sources are different. Egyptian sources are material. Material in the sense that they were not, written things. They were not books or poems. They were statues. They were inscriptions and coins. Okay. So who is Kilubatra? Kilubatra happens to be the last of the Ptolemies. And the Ptolemies is a royal family that inherited the throne or the rule from ancient Egyptians. And the Ptolemies happened to be, like we said, a number of generals, and those generals came from Greece, and they came with Alexander the Great. They came and they settled in Egypt, and they formed one of the famous dynasties, royal families of the Egyptians. Again, this is also very important. The reason why people are not focusing on Kilobattra, or the historical Kilubatra, would be because of the fact that there is a great deal of legend involved. She is made legendary, and of course, sometimes legends are so powerful that they blind people against seeing the truth. They are so immersed in the legend and the images that the legend projects that they forget about authenticity and about true history. And this is actually what is happening with Kilubatra. Again, like I said, the Romans were smart enough not to refer to the fact that part of what we know about Cleopatra was the fact that she was of a Hellenic or Greek descent or origin. They were downplaying and underplaying this part for obvious reasons, of course. They would stress her Egyptianness at the expense of her Hellenic origins. So who is Kilubatra again? Kilubatra was the last ruler of the last dynasty of the pharaohs of Egypt, who are the Ptolemies. So the Ptolemies were not native Egyptians. This has to be made clear. And this is what the Romans are not going to say. They are not going to refer to the Ptolemies. If they are going to talk about the Ptolemies, they would say that they are Egyptian. But when you check and double check, you get to know that they were not native Egyptians. They are rather the descendants of one of the generals of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, when he came to the east, when he came to Egypt, he had one of his generals by the name of Ptolemy. After Alexander the Great died, they had to kind of divide his his possession, whatever he has acquired in terms of countries, over the generals. And Ptolemy, the general, was given Egypt, and he started a whole dynasty. Okay, so like all the Ptolemies, Cleopatra was both a pharaoh and a Hellenistic monarch. Again, she was trying to reinforce her Egyptianness by referring to herself as a pharaoh, and she wouldn't also lose the ties with her Hellenistic heritage, because it would also make a difference. Again, we're stressing the fact that this was deliberately underplayed in Roman portraits of her. She's always presented as the figurehead of a strange and barbarous Egyptian culture. There was never a reference to the fact that she was of Hellenistic origins or Greek origin. Again, this is a deliberate perversion of the ancient and significant culture of Egypt. The Romans thought that by stressing her Egyptianness, people would perhaps kind of be on their side. But if they say that she was of a Greek origin, they would perhaps show some kind of sympathy towards her. So the reason behind this is that it was much easier for the Romans to draw a picture of radical differences between themselves and Egypt than between themselves and the Greeks. Again, for obvious reasons, because Rome and the Romans saw themselves as the heir to the intellectual culture of ancient Greece. So there was this stress or this reinforcement and promotion of the Egyptian rather than the Greek side of Kilubatra. Again, what is so Greek and Hellenistic about Kilubatra? The Greek part in her character would be the fact that she was the head of a Greek-speaking elite that had ruled Egypt for 3 centuries. So 3 centuries of rule by a Greek-speaking elite. A Greek-speaking elite who tried their hardest to assimilate themselves to the native practices of Egyptians. So these rulers were both kings, queens, and pharaohs. And they were careful to respect traditional Egyptian practices because this is where they are going to get their legitimacy, their rights or right to rule. They have to show themselves as much Egyptian as they are Greek, so that people would accept them. They would also embrace some of the traditions and some of the practices of Egyptians in order, of course, to come very close to Egyptians. Of course, you know that at one point Cleopatra would get married to her brother. And this is a practice that Egyptians had. So by doing that, Cleopatra was trying to gain and get legitimacy. She was trying to kind of safeguard the right to rule as an Egyptian who is making sure to follow Egyptian practices and sets of traditions. So again, the idea of a brother getting married to his own sister would be a means of cementing their own authority.
Doctor?
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead. What's your name?
Taima. If Cleopatra was Hellenistic, why the Greek didn't support her?
Because the Greeks at the time were, it wasn't their heyday, it wasn't their best days. The Greeks were decadents, they were backward, and the Romans took over from them. See? So that the Greeks were divided amongst themselves. They were not, one unified country. You had city-states, and they were not very powerful. Who was powerful at the time was the Romans. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. What is also interesting about Kirubatra and her strategy is to perhaps gain the approval and the acceptance of ancient Egyptians was the fact that she was the first of the Ptolemies to speak Egyptian. There was an Egyptian language, and she made sure that she acquires and speaks it. Again, this was one way of securing legitimacy and the right to rule. What's his name or her name? Who's that? Excuse me. Is that a boy or a girl? Okay, no problem. Okay. So you would be surprised to know that Kilubatra, the Kilubatra that we're talking about, is was the last of 7 Ptolemaic queens who had the same name. Again, you would also perhaps in order to reinforce their Greek and Hellenistic origin, the Ptolemies used to rule from Alexandria, not from Memphis. Memphis is the seat of government for the pharaohs, while Alexandria was the seat of government for the Ptolemies. So the Ptolemies would try to endear themselves to the Egyptians by perhaps wearing like the Egyptians, by perhaps speaking their language, adopting some of their traditions, but they would also try to stick to their ties as Greek and as Hellenistic by having their capital in Alexandria, because Alexandria is from Alexander, and Alexander is the founder of Alexandria. Again, perhaps contrary to a popular belief, Alexandria was much more urban, much more sophisticated, and much more intellectually vigorous than Rome itself. Okay. So, in their scramble to discredit Kilobatra, the Romans wouldn't talk about Kilobatra as a politician and as a ruler. The focus was only on the fact that she is, somebody who practices magic and witchcraft, somebody who is sensual, somebody who is a disruptor of peaceful household, somebody who is after, material things. But they never spoke about her, politics. They never spoke about her period as a ruler, because she was very successful. And if they had spoken about that, we would have known that she perhaps, our interpretation of her and what she did would have been different. So Egypt in the time of Cleopatra was the most populous country. Populous means it has the largest population in the Mediterranean Sea, basin. Egypt was what's the problem? Can you kindly mute your mic? Somebody is, I don't know. Yeah, who's that? Somebody is obviously oblivious to the fact that he or she is having her mic on. Okay, so thank God we don't have that anymore. Let me go back to the slides. Can you still see the slides?
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So again, I was trying to say that this was for good reasons. The Romans did not highlight this aspect of Kilobatra's character, the fact that she was a capable politician, and the fact that perhaps she was a good ruler. Why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't they highlight these aspects in her character? Because she would win. She would win our respect. She would win our admiration eventually. She is rather presented as a playful lady, She is rather presented as somebody who is all the time perhaps drunk, all the time immersed in flesh and fleshly pleasures and nothing else. They didn't also talk about the politics of the time and how Cleopatra came at a time when Egypt was already under the dominion of the Roman Empire. It was one of the, one of the colonies of Rome. It was colonized by the Romans. So for Cleopatra to come at that time and to perhaps fight to restore Egyptian dignity and Egyptian independence, that would have been a plus. But of course, we were not given this part of the story. So the political world that Cleopatra grew up in was one of uncertain and violent intrigue. There was a great deal of, kind of intrigues and plots and conspiracies against her. And she has seen what other people may not have seen. The fact that she had accompanied her own father into exile, and she have seen him bribe his way into the favor of the Romans. She had seen her elder sister set up on the throne in her father's place, and then when he restored the throne, he would kill her in order to return to power. She found herself at the center of a hotbed of intrigue and violent death. Again, why are we not given this in the Roman sources? Because if we're given this sad state of affairs and the things that Kirubatra is doing so that she can restore perhaps peace and order and stability to Egypt, people would appreciate what she has done. People would give her the benefit of the doubt and perhaps would reconsider their interpretations of her actions. They would perhaps look at the relationships that she had with Julius Caesar and with Antony after the the fact that she is trying to forge alliances with powerful countries in order to again restore peace and stability to her country. So you wouldn't look at the relationships as only love relationships that do not get the people involved anywhere. You would look at them in perhaps a nobler or a more noble way. You would look at them as maneuvers that she was making, as alliances that she was forging so that she can eventually restore the dignity of Egypt. So if we were to consider Kilobatra's actions from a wider perspective, we could choose to portray this action rather differently. We're talking about what she did, even those what other people are considering as degrading how she met Caesar and how she was subservient to him. Again, you would look at all these things as perhaps links in a long chain of actions that she is making so that she eventually get what she wants politically. These were all according to some observers, they were all political maneuvers that she was making to eventually get what she wants politically. Again, so the focus on Kilubatra as a destructive sexual predator must be set against a counter view that would see her associations with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony as astute political alliance. So what she did, if you look at things from the perhaps the opposite end or angle of perspective, you would say that she was a political, I don't know how to describe her. She was politically savvy. Politically savvy means that she was very clever when it comes to politics. And she was having those relationships in order to further her political ends. Again, you would also add to that the fact that she made sure that she had children from both Caesar and Antony. She had, with Caesar, she had one son, and with Antony, she has two sons and a daughter. This is again cementing the relationship between Rome and Egypt. So as you can see, Kilubatra is forging dynastic ties with the most powerful nation in the Mediterranean, in the world at the time, as a matter of fact. So again, so what is Egypt gaining out of that? Those pragmatic and political decisions and unions would promise to bring stability to the region and to restore the power of Ptolemaic Egypt. So when you look at all of these things, you would say that there is obviously more to the character of Kilubatra than just the sexual predator, than just the disruptor of peaceful households. So the image that was given to us is obviously not a complete image. This is history. Let's move to Kilubatra and let's look at how she wanted other people to remember her down through the ages. Kilobatra's image of her, how she saw herself. Again, the system in Egypt was different from the system of Rome. In order perhaps to go down as important and as glorious, you as a ruler, you would ask or commission poets to write poems about you. You would ask painters to paint, paintings of you. You would ask sculptors to come and make sculptures of you. But with Egyptians, it was different. They didn't have perhaps the book technology that the Romans had at the time. So in order for Egyptians or Egyptian rulers to perhaps go down as important and influential and everything, they would order and commission artists to perhaps build or make statues and sculptures for them. So you would have coins of Kilubatra, you would have statues of her, you would have sculptures. You would have, people, painting on the walls. And you would have images of her. Again, in cultures where the book and the written word was dominating, having statues and coins and sculptures were not the best of ways in order to spread the word about you. For actually for obvious reasons. You would books are easy to carry, are easy to read. So the Romans would win in this. In order for you to appreciate statues and sculptures, you need to have an artistic taste in the first place, and that would make all the difference between the books that are all over the place, written by the Romans, and the heavy-handed statues and sculptures that Egyptians made in Cleopatra's name. So again, we're focusing in this part on how Kilobatra wanted others to remember her, to see her. Again, she did that through existing means, what was available at the time in ancient Egypt. The culture was a culture of artifacts. If I want to immortalize somebody, I put him on a coin, I make a statue for him or her, or a sculpture. But we don't have the culture of books in ancient Egypt. So of the various artifacts that survive, we are going to just focus on a few examples. We have a sculptural relief. We have 2 coins and 2 marble portraits. And there is this deep conviction that Kilobatra herself authorized them. She asked people to model them in her name. Again, that would also give you insights into Kilobatra as a strategist, somebody who wants to promote her image for posterity, for later generations. She made sure that people saw her in a certain way. So again, the first monument that we have is a sculptural relief that would situate Kilobatra firmly within the traditional practices and modes of the portraiture of Egyptian, of ancient Egypt. This is the relief. This is more or less like a wall, part of a temple where you will have Kilobatra engraved. Obviously, Kilobatra is the one who is on the right. Who do we have on the right? Obviously, we have more than one character. Can you see that? Perhaps
Yes.
I need to minimize it a little bit.
Yeah, more clear than the book.
Yeah, clearer than ever. So this is a portion of the relief sculpture on the southern exterior wall of the temple of Hathor at Dandara in Egypt. Dandara, of course, is in southern Egypt. Where is she? I think she is
with her child.
Yeah, she should be. If she is with her child, she should be on the left, right?
No, she's on the right.
Tab, can you see her child? I don't see her child.
Her child is in front of her on the right side.
Allah. Well, I cannot see him.
I think the book said she is in the left.
Yeah, he mentioned in the book.
The book says they are on the right. I mean, you're talking about the son or both the son and the mother?
I'm talking about the mother, Cleopatra, and her son. I think she is in the left.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I think she is teaching her child how to fight the enemy.
You'll have to raise your voice.
I think she is training her child to fight. She.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps she's trying to teach him to fight back. Yeah. We'll look at that. Anyway, whether she is on the left or on the right, anyway, she is immortalized on this wall, right? She again, remember, this is one of the things that she did so that she can perhaps endear herself to Egyptians. She is practicing, she's having those practices that the ancient Egyptians had, the pharaohs, to have themselves carved on monuments. Again, it's not only here. She's perhaps this is typical of mothers, and yet she has this maternal instinct to her. In spite of the fact that she's a pharaoh and she's a queen, she does not forget the fact that at one point she will perhaps die, and her son would need to have the right to rule. To have the right to rule, she is also immortalizing him. She's putting him on this monument. So as you can see, this is a portion of the relief sculpture on the southern exterior wall of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera in Egypt. So this is we have 4 figures, as you can see. So 2 of the 4 figures are those of Cleopatra and her son. Her son, of course, by Caesar, and her son's name was Caesarion. So again, the Temple of Hathor at Dendera was an ancient religious site. And this was started by her father, and she completed it. Why would she involve herself in a project like this? She was trying to get approval by ancient Egyptians. She wears a head dress with horns on either side, with a disc representing the sun, and in this way she was endearing herself, or perhaps kind of comparing herself to the Egyptian goddess Hathor. Again, we would stress the fact that she was promoting Caesarion, his son, as a legitimate pharaoh and ruler of Egypt. So representing her son in the timeless fashion of traditional portraits of the pharaohs was a means to establish his legitimacy, his right to rule. So in promoting her son, Kilobattra could be suggesting her integration with the traditional practices of Egypt. Again, we're still reading into the portrait that we have of her. The fact that there was, she was dressed in a way that would bring her close to the goddess of the sun, Hathor. So she was combining the divine and the human in her character. She was also using the past in order to stress her own authority and legitimacy. So this is only one example This is one of the sources, as you can see, the source here is not as light as the sources that we have in ancient Rome. The ancient Egyptian sources are very heavy-handed. They are sculptures, they are statues, and they are coins. And here are two coins. If you look at them, and you look at them, so
That's how the coins used to be?
Yeah, these were coins, yeah, from ancient Egypt during the time of Kilobattra. See how nice they are?
Yes.
Okay. So 1.4, this is a coin portrait of Kilobattra. As you can see, this is made of silver. And the other one is a coin portrait of also Kilobattra. It's a different one, obviously. Again, you don't. They wouldn't be. You wouldn't look at them as her best when it comes to beauty and everything, right? But I mean, they survived in the test of time, and we have them until this moment. These are signs of immortality, right? When you look at them, you would see that they look more perhaps Hellenistic than Egyptian, right? Especially, actually, the two of them, right? If people don't tell you who the coins are for, you would take them for Roman coins or Greek coins, right? So again, Cleopatra was all the time trying to endear herself to both Egyptians and Hellenistic traditions. So on the coin, she does not appear youthful. Her neck is thick set, and she has a rather unflattering roll of skin. Okay. Again, this is against what we're saying, obviously, in terms of why the coins are there. The coins are there for, in order to immortalize her, whether they are negative or positive. And then we have busts or a small statue, a head. And as you can see here, she looks way better, right? Very nice looking. Don't you think so? Here she is whiter, right? She looks more perhaps Roman and more Hellenistic than Egyptian. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And this is made of marble, of course. So as you can see, Cleopatra here is represented very much in the manner of a Hellenistic queen, with her hairstyle, her braids and her bun, usually referred to as melon hairstyle. Again, she would try to combine the best of the two worlds.
Doctor?
Yes.
I think the beauty scales are different.
I need you to
Maybe they
raise your voice. What's your name? What's your name?
Tima.
Tima.
Tima. S.
Sima.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Sima.
I think the beauty scales were different before, so maybe they past,
You,
they thought that she was very beautiful.
you're trying to say that you know, standards of beauty are not universal. The fact that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, like they say, right?
Yes.
Whatever I consider beautiful, you may not consider as such, right? So perhaps, as you're saying, perhaps at the time she would look beautiful this way, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, thank you. Again, at one point you would also have Mark Antony minted in a coin, and this is also for good reasons. Again, that would indicate or refer to the alliance that she would like people to know about. Again, if you look at the coins, perhaps one of the interpretations would be that she was trying to perhaps appeal to the Roman audience rather than to ancient Egyptian. Remember how the coins were minted, and the fact that she looks more Roman than Egyptian in them. And then here we have Antony, and he is also on coins. And this is also for obvious reasons. Why we have Antony minted on coins? Because if anything, it would kind of refer to the alliance that he was forging with ancient Rome. Again, that would also give her and even Antony as perhaps a partner in the power that she now has. And then that would give them the legitimacy and the right to rule that they were looking for. Again, we're moving towards the reassessment of Kirubatra. Now that we have spoken about her long and enough from different perspectives, we have the perspective of the Romans, and we also have the perspective of the Egyptians. And I think it's about time that we started to look at Kilobattra afresh. What do you think, now that we have read a great deal about her from different perspectives? What do you think? What's your assessment of the character of Kilobattra? Do you think she was a good individual or a bad one?
Hello?
Yeah.
My name is Bashair.
Bashair, go ahead.
I think she was a smart queen.
Okay, she was smart.
Yeah, regardless of her sexual actions.
Yeah.
She gets her goals to be a queen on Egypt and almost queen on Rome.
Don't you think, Bashair, that she was using her beauty or her sexuality, for that matter, in order to further her political ends?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, which is good or bad?
So no, I think it was bad. In our traditionals, I think it's bad, but in her time, I think it's not.
Yeah, we're trying to say that she was pragmatic. We're trying to say that she was, I don't know whether you have come across a book by the name of The Prince. There is a book called The Prince. Have you ever read or have you ever come across this book? The Prince by Machiavelli?
No.
Okay, so you'd better go and look for it. So I'll tell you about the. I'll get to the core or to the bottom of what the prince is about. It is about you as a ruler. If you're a ruler, you have at your at your disposal all the tools, whether those tools are legitimate or not, in order to perhaps acquire power, in order to keep this power. So with Machiavelli, the end justifies the means. They call it in Arabic الغاية تبرر الوسيلة. If you have an end or a target, Machiavelli in his book would tell you, do whatever you like, do whatever you think is right in order to achieve your goal. Of course, this is not ethical, but if you look at Kilobattra, and if you would apply the principles of the prince by Machiavelli, you would say that she was, if we say that she was a Machiavellian character in terms of politics, we would say that she did a good job. She was using her beauty, she was using her sexuality in order to achieve her
Doctor,
goal.
can I add to that my opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. What's your name?
Okay, so I'm with that.
With that, go ahead.
Okay, so if we say a man is using his sword or his strength,
yes,
like it's okay, but we cannot say a woman is using her beauty as a weapon. Isn't that just sexist? Like this is what God gave her, just like a man using his sword, right? So it's okay, in my opinion, for her to use her beauty. It's what she has.
With that, I would beg to differ because you know, this is demeaning for women.
Yeah, but like you can't expect her to take a sword and go into battle. This is what
Why
she
not?
has.
Why not? Why not?
They were misogynists.
Yeah,
okay,
man.
but like whatever the case, she's still a woman.
I mean,
it's better for her to just use her
yeah,
brain.
with that, what you're
Isn't it a
saying
better
is,
weapon?
yeah, no, what you're saying is misogynist in and of itself, right? You're falling into
Well,
the
I'm
trap that
trying,
other.
like I'm trying to look at it from her point of view, not mine, obviously. But
Yeah.
like, if she had no other option, like,
yeah, this is what I'm saying. And if we're talking about pragmatism, the fact that she was a pragmatic politician, we would say that she was doing fine. I mean, we're trying to you know, steer away from the traditional and the stereotypical image of her as a beautiful lady who does nothing but engage in sexual acts and in sexual pleasure. We're trying to give her back some of the credit.
Yeah, like that wasn't my point. A lot of women in history just used their beauty, but no, she used it as a strategic point in her. Like it was just more of a weapon she had on the side.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying, and this is what I'm saying, that you have you know, political intellectuals who are backing and supporting this idea, the idea that as a prince or a princess for that matter, she has at her disposal all the tools and she can use them. And one of her tools, like you're saying, would be to use her beauty so that she can intrigue her enemies, perhaps, so that she can perhaps forge alliances with them. Okay, so we don't look at her from our perhaps limited perspective as people who live in the 21st century, people who are ruled and governed by a set of, you know, of ethics. Of course, when it comes to politics, people forget about ethics. I mean, obviously, ethics and politics go in parallel lines; they never meet. So if we deal with Cleopatra as such, we would give her the credit that she lost along the way. We would think of her in along the lines of a shrewd and a smart politician who is doing everything she can so that she can restore the stability and the peacefulness of a country as large as Egypt, right? So our assessment would be different. If we subscribe to what the Romans are saying, we're going to end up saying that she was bad and everything, that she was a mere, sexual object, and she was enjoying it and stuff like that. But this is obviously not the image that we have of her now. Now that we, I'm sorry. Now that we have seen the whole or the complete picture, right? Don't you agree?
Yeah, doctor.
Yeah. No, you don't? Okay. I think I need to go back to... okay, so it was a journey, and I'm not going to say whether you find it interesting or not, because this is, it's up to you. So did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Yes,
Sure.
doctor.
Okay. So what more can you say about Kilobatra now that we are done with it?
She was smart for letting her son lead after her. Like she knew what she was doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. The fact that she was not selfish.
Yes.
She was not focusing her energies on herself and full stop. And she was trying to pave the way for her son to rule
Yes.
in a legitimate way after she dies. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you. I think the history sometimes repeats itself when we compare Egypt in that time with some countries in the maybe Asia or Middle East. In this time, we can see a rich country with a lot of benefits will be a target for superpower countries.
Yeah.
They will try to get their wealth, their you know what I mean. And the second one is, as a politician, Cleopatra, I think she maybe found herself in conflict between her goals to keep her country independent and to cope or to try to find diplomatic ways to solve the problem with the countries around here, Greek, Roman, or something like that. But I don't believe the sexual history or the sexual stories about her behavior. I think any woman will, it's normal to her to protect her dignity, to protect her reputation. This is the normal ladies, the normal women do. How about a ruler? We have to sometimes don't go or don't follow or don't believe what they are saying. Movie or Hollywood cinema, of course, they will try to exaggerate or to put a lot of interesting ideas about this character. If they told us, or if they will tell us the reality, maybe there is no interest in to follow or to see or to read about this character. This is normal process in Hollywood. I think Kilobattra was a great person who motivated the Hollywood writer. But beside Shakespeare, he wrote a play about Cleopatra and
Yes.
Antonio.
Yeah, Antony and Cleopatra.
Antony and Cleopatra. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, for those very beautiful insights into the character of Kirubatra. And this is the benefit of, having to read it all. If we kept to the Roman sources, we wouldn't have, come up with those very beautiful conclusions about Kilobatra as being a political, manipulator, somebody who is very excellent at strategy. She knows how to strike balance. Different balances, obviously, between whatever happens within her country and whatever happens outside. Somebody who would reconcile whatever seems irreconcilable. The fact that who would imagine that Egypt and Rome, and they were, mortal enemies, if you like, would come together. It didn't materialize as much as we wanted it to be, but at least there were attempts on her part, and she managed somehow to convince Julius Caesar at one point and Antony at another to come close so that they can have the alliance that would serve the interests of the two nations, Egypt and Rome. So we're looking at Kilobattra now from perhaps the opposite angle of vision. We are trying to, against all the odds, to defend her dignity, and we're trying to say that there is more to her character, there is more to her history than just what the Romans are giving about her. Remember that the Romans were misogynist. Remember that the Romans were Republicans, they were not in love of being ruled by a king or a queen, for that matter. They had their eyes and minds set on imperial positions and holdings across the world, and Egypt was a big deal in terms of wealth and in terms of even strategic location at the time. Okay, somebody's raising his or her hand. Go ahead.
Sir?
Yeah, what's your name?
Rebecca.
Rebecca, go ahead.
Hi. I have something about Cleopatra.
You have what?
Something about Cleopatra.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I had many good things about her, that she's smart and she's very good at many different languages. She speaks 9 different languages.
That I don't know of.
No, she does. I did research on it.
Okay, so
but the thing is that when we finished reading the book about her, it's like she inspired us the way how she is. It's not, we're going to take the good stuff from her, but the bad stuff, no. She's
if we consider, Rebecca, remember, you're falling into the trap of, you're subscribing to what other people are saying about it, the Romans are saying about it. You need to be alert to that. The Romans have been bombarding our heads with ideas about her sexuality, ideas about her perhaps laziness, the fact that she doesn't do nothing. So these are, ideas that we inherited from the Romans, and it's about time that we got rid of them once and for all, right?
Yes, I understand that, but at least we learned something new about Cleopatra. So,
okay,
something different about her.
Something different than what we're raised on. When it comes to the character of Kilubatra. Thank you, Rebecca, so much.
You're welcome.
Any other insights?
Yes, doctor, I have a question.
Yeah, okay.
My name is Bashir again.
Okay, I'm Bashir.
I wrote about Cleopatra, and this information actually it's make me so interesting and shocked.
Yeah, go ahead.
She was 20 years old, and I think she was so young to do all this stuff in her age.
Well, I think she was perhaps older than that.
I read that in the book. I don't know exactly where, in which page.
Yeah, perhaps this one of her, this was one point in time, but I think she was older than that. But
okay.
yeah, okay. Thank you, Bashir. Thank you. Okay, who else?
I have a question.
You have a question, go ahead.
You said that the war between the Roman and the Egyptian was a civil war.
No, I
but
didn't say that.
it was militaristic.
No, I said, let's define what a civil war is. A civil war is a war between people within the same country. So they have the same nationality. Okay? But a war without the word civil would be a war between, two different countries, people from different countries. Okay? Are you getting the idea, Taima?
Yes.
Okay.
Doctor?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Yasser.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
My question is about next coming exam. How is the nature of the exam? Is it like paragraph and we are answering, or we have to study each information in the chapter and be like يعني أسئلة عشوائية أو we have to have paragraph and we are answering?
No, it's going to be a multiple choice kind of thing, where we have a database of questions and you will have choices. You're going to go to the your LMS and you're going to choose. Perhaps the exam is perhaps 15 minutes or so. Okay, somebody else?
Doctor, I think Taima, I believe she said that she was 20 years old and she was young at that age to do everything. Back in the days, they used to be doing so many things at such a young age, so I wouldn't see that as shocking.
Well, I'm not shocked. I wasn't there, but I wouldn't tell.
True.
But yeah, if part of the admiration that we have here, even if she was 30 or perhaps 35, that is still young, right?
True.
That would even collide with the fact that she has cesarean her son. Remember, when we meet her, she already has a son, right, from Julius Caesar, and 3 kids from Antony. When will she? If she's 20, I think she would. She got married at 10. I don't know.
Yeah, before they used to get married at such a young age.
I don't know.
They mentioned that she was 21, not 22.
Oh, 21. Yeah. Okay. That explains.
I said that.
Would it make a difference whether she was 20 or even 25? Yeah. What's her name? Samah? She's still very young. It's okay. It's okay. If perhaps, excuse me. She was something, even if she was again 35 or even, given the fact that at the time when women were not empowered, women were looked upon with suspicion, right? So to come for a lady to come and to have this big leadership role and to inspire us after perhaps 2,000 years, I think it's quite a feat, right? Okay. Let me just remind you that I'm having, I think I sent you that. I'll have a workshop, inshallah, on, is it Monday? Yeah, next Monday. I'll hold a workshop on how to approach literary texts. Approach them, how to read them, because by reading, I mean analyzing them and getting to know how to assess them. So if you're interested, I'll send you the link. It's going to be on Monday, inshallah, next Monday at 2 p.m. I'm hopeful that you can make it. I'm hopeful that you find the time to attend. This is basically what I wanted to share with you tonight. It has been a real pleasure to share thoughts and ideas with you on Kilobattra. I need to stress the fact that you have very beautiful pieces of information and nuggets of knowledge, but that wouldn't be enough. You need to try your hand writing them, because like I told you, I have this traumatic experience last semester. People had very beautiful ideas, but when it came to writing them, transferring them to paper, they didn't do a good job. And I was so sad because some of them were excellent in class, exactly like you. They would contribute input, they would share insights. But we don't want to fall into the trap of saying very nice things verbally, but when it comes to writing, we fail. Okay, so try your hand, and we can have the group as a platform. You write paragraphs, reflections on what we have been saying and doing over the past 3 weeks, and we can kind of critique each other and say this is good, this is bad, this is taken as is from a source. You should start this way, and you should perhaps stop here and there. So let's keep ourselves busy with writing on and about the character of Cleopatra now that she is behind us. Next time, inshallah, when we meet, we will have Christopher Marlowe, and you're going to like him as much, inshallah. So on this,
please, sir, may I ask some question, please?
Yeah, one question. Yes, Sarah.
For quiz, what we have to cover from book or slides is enough? We have to like read from books or slides for the first quiz?
I think you have already read the book, whether you have seen the fact that I'm flipping through the book. So you have read it. You have the videos, and of course you have the book. I mean, the book would be very easy. I wouldn't recommend that people depend on slides made by perhaps people from previous semesters, or think that they take stuff off the internet and they put them as is, and they say these are mine, and because they are not good quality. Okay, read and study from the book.
And sir, which chapters?
Watch the video. You can also watch the videos, and the videos are all available, and you get them right after we finish. Okay. So on this note, and with this item, we come to the end of today's class. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Please.
Thank you, doctor.
Please.
Okay.
I have quoted.
Doctor, please listen to him.
Yeah. Okay.